I'm so excited to host this live conversation on Substack with you about the launch of your new book, which leading change in the era of AI. And we'll just wait. Yay, you have a copy. You have your author's copy. That's amazing.
Finally arrived.
Fantastic. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining. We'll just wait a moment or two for others to join before we actually jump into conversation. I'm also still getting the hang of Substack and the lives, even though I host live meditations every Sunday. Just making sure that I can see the comments and navigating this technology. As we know, we can only do it on the phone, which we're kind of used to doing lives or Zooms on the laptop. And this is like, brings it right back into, we're on our phones. It's like, it's no big deal. It's
like
just
having a chat.
It's having a video chat that everybody can join, which is brilliant. So Karen, where are you joining us from? Let us know in the comments, because I'd love to open up the conversation as well, not just between me and Bill, but to everybody that's here as well. So congratulations, Bill, on the launch of the book. I'm really excited for you. What does it feel like to hold it in your hands? Show me again.
Yeah. So it's an interesting experience. So it's self-published. And the interesting thing about when you self-publish is there's a lot of work that goes into it. And as we were talking about before, I just got my author copy just the other day. And what's fascinating about that is you put all this work into preparing it, the manuscript, the cover, the back cover, the front cover, the ream, and you sort of submit it into Amazon, and it goes into a review stage. And it says it could take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours for review. And again, I think it's a wonderful thing they're doing the review. The book is about AI, and a lot of the review that Amazon has to do is actually make sure that it's not what they call AI slop, right? Meaning somebody just went into ChatGPT, generated a whole bunch of text, called it a book, and tried to publish it. So I appreciate the review. But what's interesting is you don't actually ever find out when it's approved. So I found out, very similar with my first book, I found out that it was live and that it was out there for people to buy when somebody messaged me and said, I just bought your book.
Oh my God. Wow.
And I think the way it's supposed to happen, although, again, technology and the fact that we can even print these things on demand is pretty fascinating. But I think the way it's supposed to happen is you're supposed to get an author copy before the rest of the world can buy it. And it seems now in 2 instances of self-publishing, that has been the inverse. So people have gotten the book before I've gotten the author copy. But, I just let the universe tell me and remind me that, hey, it belongs in the hands of other people first. But yes, to receive it, my own author copy, hold it, see it, feel the weight of it was it is a pretty amazing experience.
It feels good. And I love that the universe, just asking you just to trust, you don't need to go over it again. You've done it. We've had Amazon review it. It's cool. Send it out there. So congratulations. And that's really cool that, it's like another job. And I wonder if it's a bot, is it a real person who's actually scanning the book for AI? Like, that's another job in itself that didn't exist before. Very interesting, especially given the title. And the subject matter. Just want to say thanks, Karen, for letting me know you're in Michigan. Beautiful. Enjoy your morning walk. Fantastic. And welcome, Aaron. And hi, Ali. Very welcome. Aaron, let me know where you are in the world. And Bill, I'll introduce you to Ali Isaac, who is a beautiful storyteller and myth worker in Ireland, based near Cavan, I think. Beautiful one to follow on Substack. So congratulations on the release of this. And it just feels like you've just given birth, Bill. to this whole body of work. And I'd love to know, first of all, where the seed of the conception formed for you. When, at what point was it that you said, I am going to write a book on this topic? And how long ago was that? And what happened?
Yeah, it was March, early March of 2023. And I remember exactly where I was, what was happening, and what um, really lit me up inside. And that was the first time I saw a demonstration of this technology, which we now know as ChatGPT. But the technology was woven into what we now know as Copilot at Microsoft. And I actually worked at Microsoft at the time, and one of our executives did this demonstration, and it was a public preview. It was the first time that the public was seeing how ChatGPT and the power of that technology was being woven into our everyday technology, something as simple as the Microsoft Office suite or a web browser. And he demonstrated this technology, and I immediately felt this is going to alter and upend the way we do work and the way we connect to work in a matter of minutes. And I felt this overwhelming and looming question, which was, okay, if what I'm seeing live is real and this technology is able to do all of these things that we as humans used to do that were kind of mundane, that took up a lot of time, that were very rote and routine, well, then what are we going to do with that time that we get back?
Mm.
And I kept waiting for that question to be asked and answered. And Tracy, it never came. And I remember watching this demonstration. I was in a Microsoft office. The demonstration was happening. I was looking around. I was like, is anybody else seeing this? Is anybody else feeling what I'm feeling? We're about to interrupt, disrupt, upend the livelihoods of humans on all sides of us. It could be for the better, it could be for the worse, but is anybody else feeling this weight? And nobody was. They were all a little bit in the glimmer and the glitz and very excited about the possibilities, but I had this, like, I don't know, this feeling under my sternum that was like, this is bigger than what we're seeing. And it was in that moment that I felt called to not only pay deeper attention, but to start writing the questions that were coming up in me that nobody else was asking, and to have a very almost an interrogation with what I was seeing and a reflection with what I was feeling. And so that was the first week of March 2023. And that's
Mm.
where this began. As we watched this technology unfold and be unveiled into our daily lives.
Wow. Uh, Isn't it really interesting how people just didn't bother to ask the question, because I think people are just so focused on getting things done and on that hamster wheel nearly, whereas you've been, I can feel that heart. And I know from our conversation with Celtic Soul that there is a huge heart underneath that sternum of yours, just bursting to express what it is to be human amidst all of this change. And I think that's the essence of the book, really, isn't it? The leading change. It is about the balance between the two. So I'm sure, and I apologize, I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Obviously, there are others who are way ahead of me, and I just want to say hi, Aaron. Thanks very much for your comment. Pacific Northwest, the US, and welcome. Delighted you've found Celtic Soul as well. So the book, I assume, is
Mm.
then, and you can tell me, is a series of those questions that came up and the answers that you've found. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's interesting. It really started off as kind of a controversial series of thought pieces, right? I needed somewhere to place these questions. And where I started was actually LinkedIn. So I felt it was important to ask these questions in a community and in a space where other people should be thinking about these things. And the place that logically made sense at the time was LinkedIn, because certainly there was a lot of news around this AI technology being infused into our daily productivity suites. And so I started there, and it became almost a rhythm, a drum beat, because the minute that you sort of hit print or publish or share or save, uh, everything was out of date.
Right.
The next iteration of some change would drop, or some luminary would come in, and I found that there were people who were responding to what I was posing as questions, and in some instances answering from my own perspective, my own expertise. 20 plus years of leading technology change, 20 plus years of understanding people. As we've talked about in our previous, Celtic Soul episode, coming from a large family and understanding dynamics and emotions and hopes and dreams and livelihood, and all of that sort of became this concoction with which I could write and feel into all of the uncertainty and ambiguity. I mean, really, what it really came down to is people were struggling with uncertainty and ambiguity, and they needed direction and they needed guidance. So it started off on LinkedIn, and I never felt any pressure to publish sort of routinely. Instead, I published in a responsive manner. So I would see events take place, or I would see enhancements get rolled out, or a tech leader would go, for example, and speak at the US Capitol in front of the Congress and give testimony about this technology. And I would sit with it and I would reflect on it. I would discern, and things would come up in me. And it would ultimately lead to more questions than answers. And I would share those questions. And it really only took maybe one person each time to sort of reach out and say, "Thank you for talking about this in this manner, in this way, with this care, with this compassion, and with this curiosity. Please keep going because I don't see it anywhere else." And
Mm.
these were tech leaders. These were legislators. These were book authors. These were, some might say, the best of the best. And they were telling me that they were hungry for this perspective and they weren't seeing it anywhere else. So they said, keep going. And 2.5 years later, it's now it's now a book, and I actually owe a dear friend a thank you, because he came over to my house one day, and he had a stack of paper, and he dropped it on my dining room table, and I said, "What is that?" I thought it was like a contract or something he was dealing with. And he said, "These are all your articles." And I said, there's no way
Oh my God.
those are all my articles." He said, "Bill, I print these out because there's so much depth to them. There's so much care, and you choose your words so succinctly and carefully that I print them out and I write notes on them."
Wow.
And
Wow.
I printed them out, and he held it up and it was a stack. And I said,
Mhm.
there's no way." He said, "Bill, this is a book." And I owe him a debt of gratitude, because I don't think my mind would have gone there, because I was already in that realm of share the thought leadership and knowledge in on a platform like LinkedIn where people could get it easily. His point was, yes, and this should be bound. This should be something you carry. This should be something that people can take notes on, dog ear, take to the beach, share with their friends. And I'm grateful he said that, because I don't think I would have seen the depth and the weight of what I was carrying, literally,
Yeah.
until that moment.
Oh, what a thoughtful thing to do, and what care and compassion and curiosity was in your friend's heart as well. And for him to bring that to you and show you this isn't just your own mind. This is needed for the wider world. Obviously, these conversations need to happen. So thank you to your friend for doing that, and for you in this curiosity. Hi, Mary. Welcome. Glad you could join us. When I posted about our live conversation, I think it was yesterday. I don't know, time escapes me these days, but I think it was yesterday. And Ali commented, and there's a lot of people in my sphere, especially those who are in the realm of doing the deeper work and the spiritual work, as opposed to the realm of those in the corporate space and the tech space, that there's a reticence to embrace obviously AI. Because is it taking away our creativity? Is it going to overtake? Now, you mentioned at the beginning that this has an opportunity to free us up with
Yes.
time. And that can be a really scary thing for some people. I'm not saying for a lot of people. Let's unpack this. There's a load of rabbit holes I could go down. So let's keep it to the track of what about the creativity part and how we balance creativity, owning our creativity and our expression from the heart, and AI, and how it might overtake or not. What's your view on that?
You know, part of the reason that I felt so called to keep writing and keep speaking up was precisely this reason. I think every one of us is a creative inside. Um, and yeah, there are moments where I see this technology allowing and unleashing creativity in ways that we didn't have access to before. So, for example, the cover of the book, right,
Mm,
is AI generated, right? Now, what's
right.
interesting is I I had an image in my mind of what I wanted for such a long time. But I'm not an artist. I'm not at least an artist who can draw or paint. Um, and I actually had in my first book, I had a an actual artist render the cover. I reached out to that artist this time, and because of time and logistics and circumstances, it didn't work out. But I thought, actually, this is a perfect example of where I should be using AI because it's a book about AI to generate the cover. And essentially, what I had in my mind, as you can see, is I always felt that I wanted to depict the bust of a Greek philosopher. These statues, these ancient classical antiquity statues that we're very familiar with in Roman times and Greek times, and we think of the philosophers as the wise ones. We think about the wisdom that they imparted many many centuries, millennia ago, and it felt important to me to sort of have that. But you also notice that his arm is robotic. So
Wow. Okay.
we have a mixture of the ancient and also a little bit of the technological. And I
Mm,
wanted the gears to be showing right in the wrist. And the other part that you notice is he's pretty pixelated, right? So
yeah.
if you look at that, that signifies packets dropping or signals dropping.
Mm,
If we think about, for example, we're on this Substack live now, if all of a sudden there was a delay or disruption, those listening might hear packets dropping, right? The signal doesn't get all the way through. And that is what I wanted to signify here. And then on the trailing end behind him is ones and zeros. But
right.
when you hold the cover, you actually notice that the ones and zeros are backwards. And that's intentional. That was my way of
Okay.
saying we're going in the wrong direction.
Mm,
However, if you take this cover and you hold it up to a mirror, it's the right way. And that was my effort to say
oh,
to the
wow.
reader that in order to understand this technology, we must also look at ourselves. So all of that is woven into this image. And I used AI to help me create it. So to your
Thanks for
point around
explaining.
creativity, that's a wonderful example. But on the
Mm-hmm.
flip side, there's several chapters in this book that talk about how our creativity through storytelling, through movies and music and media and writing are being taken away by this
Mm,
technology, are being co-opted by this technology. Many of us remember the strikes that took place in the past years from the actors. the
Yep.
producers and the directors. You remember that. And the fascinating thing about that was they were saying that this technology was disrupting, but also taking their soul. I mean, their
Yep.
livelihood, going back to our point around what is the livelihood and how we as humans earn and trust and keep and move through the world. For years and decades, we've entrusted actors, producers, directors to entertain us. And
Hmm.
it's through that entertainment that we are reminded of who we are, right? We learn about our own struggles, our traumas, our hopes, our dreams through art. And if all of a
Right.
sudden this technology is kidnapping that art or taking that art or saying to an actor, hey, just come into the studio once, sign this piece of paper. We'll do a 360 scan of your face and your body, and then you'll never have to show up to an audition again. And you'll get a fraction of the money, but not all the money. I mean, that in itself was being proposed to actors.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that there were people who stood up and said, "No,
Mm.
not not on my watch, not on my
Yeah.
time." And I've talked with
Yeah.
many friends. I have family and friends who are actors. This is their soul work, right? Getting on
Mm.
stage, getting in front of a camera, taking on a role that they know will move somebody that they may never meet in this world, but it will move them, it will save their life, it will inspire them. They don't wanna give that up. They certainly don't
Yeah.
wanna give it up to something that doesn't have a heart, that is only ones and zeros and is made
Yeah.
of silica chips. And so there are chapters in this book that are these warning calls and these desperate pleas that we not let go of that innate creativity that is perfectly imperfect and cannot be replicated. The art that is created, that is spoken, that is sung, it's meant to be divine. And I don't think we should allow these technologies to consume that. So there's both sides to the discussion. I love the fact that it's allowed me to tap into my own creativity and to take a stance on why we need to protect the creative ventures and the juncture that we're at more than ever.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, thank you for expressing that. That really puts my mind at ease, not having read the book and this kind of slight edge of, oh, because I'm only new to I've been exploring it only in the last couple of weeks. Actually, Celtic Soul was the first opportunity I had to embrace AI in a way because a friend of mine who I've introduced you to, Tom Evans,
Yes.
helped me come up with the name Celtic Soul via his chat GBT or whatever platform he uses. So thank you, AI, for that opportunity. So I think we do have a lot of things to be grateful for. And I feel from what you're saying and what Ali is suggesting in terms of how do we not lose our humanity to
Mm,
this and our creativity, it's about discerning in ourselves. How do we keep how do we stay in our power?
that's right.
Literally. And then learn to come into right relationship, into partnership with the technology, because I wholly believe that that's possible. Um, you have navigated change for over 20 years. As you say, you've been a leader in that space of change. And you will, I'm sure, recognize that there's always a fear when we come to the edge of
Mm,
really entering. We're entering into something absolutely epic right now, phenomenally big, and of course, it's going to bring up complete fear in people. But as we look back over history and the technological advances that we have experienced, everybody has come to embrace them, and um, we can look back and go, "Thank God for that," you
mm,
know. I don't want to wash the dishes anymore. I don't have time. Thank you, dishwasher.
Right.
Experienced that recently when my dishwasher broke down, and all of a sudden it's like, ah. So I think that brings us back to that point of, what do you do with this free time that you have? Now, I don't have to spend over half an hour every day washing the dishes, for example. What am I doing with that time?
Mm.
So what would you put in that empty space for people who are kind of maybe sitting with, I have to keep myself busy because that's keeping me intact.
Yeah. I love the word empty. And as you said it, I was brought back to a Cranberries song called "Empty." You probably remember that song from No Need to Argue, but which was, I think, their second album, and I was a huge Cranberries fan. So
Mhm.
the word is so generous, but also so disarming when people think about, okay, well, how do I fill the emptiness? And part of the reason I asked the questions I asked early on about livelihood was we've gotten to a place where so much of who we are is determined by what we do, or at least we allow that, right? I
Yeah.
am I am my job, I am my role, I am my heroics. And I'll talk about it in two realms. First, the corporate world, and then the personal world. In the corporate world, think about it this way. We had lots of people who had entire careers, entire arcs of careers that were generated, created, rewarded, awarded based on what they did distinctly and uniquely, what I would call corporate heroics. So to your point around the dishwasher, let's take like the example in a business process. Maybe somebody was able to spend 10 hours a week running Excel formulas on a business process in order to give their bosses, their leaders, the information they needed to make an informed decision that benefited the business, right? Any corporation or any organization probably can relate to that experience. Well, what happens when what used to take me 10 to 12 hours a week and I was applauded for, right?
Yeah.
Bill has the distinct capability that he can do this and he's got the tenacity to do it. All of a sudden, we realize that AI can do it in a matter of seconds. Well, that's wonderful for Bill, maybe. It's wonderful for the organization, certainly. But then Bill's sitting there saying, okay, well, this used to be the thing that everybody applauded me on. This is the thing that got me promoted. This is the thing that had me stand out. And now it can be done by a soulless, heartless entity. I'm now left with two questions. One is, how do I set myself apart? And two, what do I do with the time that I now have back? And I don't think it's a question for the individual that's as challenging. The individual, I think, if you ask the individual, if you ask Bill, hey, where can you spend an additional 12 hours a week? I think the individual would have an answer. The question becomes, is it in alignment with what their management wants and what their leaders want? And have the managers and leaders even thought through that? Like,
Yeah.
how would I reallocate Bill's time if I had 12 more hours of Bill's time? And again, it's not for a lack of desire or want, but managers and leaders are so taxed and so busy that they haven't even had the opportunity to imagine that. So when
Yeah.
Bill comes to the manager and says, hey, Tracy, I've got 12 hours back. What do you want me to do with my time? You, as the manager and leader, feel this stress and this burden to be like, oh, I haven't thought through that. But you don't want to say I haven't thought through that, right? Because that's almost admitting a weakness.
Mm.
And that creates a whole strain, a,
Yeah.
a, a challenging relationship strain. And
Mm.
that's part of the reason I asked that initial question was, are we ready to have that conversation? If we are, I think what we can unleash is a lot of creativity. Because you know
Mm.
this, I know this. Everybody has a list of to-dos
Yeah.
that pretty much every week we don't get to. And what do? We push it to the next week and the next week and the next week. So if you came to me and you said, hey, dust off that to-do list, those things you've always wanted to do, you've always wanted to start a video series, you've always wanted to interview customers, you've always wanted, whatever it is, pull those up and let's allow
Mm.
you to do that. But the first instance that it doesn't work out that way or somebody doesn't trust that, we snap back, right, to our
Yeah.
old habits. And we do it from a place of fear. And to me, that's why change is hard because at any given moment, change is a dance with grief. And you have to let go of something that once was in order to step into what could be. And that's what all of this technology is bringing up for us in the corporate world right now. Yes, it's exciting. It can do all this stuff, but are we ready to let go of what once was? In some cases, I think we should hold on to things with fervor, be
Yeah.
the hearth tenders, if you will. But
Mhm.
in other cases, we do need to let go and grieve things. We need to have these little corporate wakes, I call them, like these little Irish wakes around the way things were once done because it made us heroic at the time, but it's not the way things are going to be going forward. And that on the that's all on the corporate side. On the personal side, imagine if we could say to ourselves, "Hey, take that creative project that you've got. Take the dreams." One of the things I talk about in the book is dream journaling. I'm an avid dream journaler, and for so long I had there's 25 notebooks all over this house that have half-written words and dreams and started sequences, and I
Are you
eventually
ready
got
to
to
let them go?
yeah, I'm ready to let them go, and one of the things I do now is when I have one of these very vivid dreams, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, I'll hit record on my phone, and I'll just speak into it. A lot of it doesn't make sense because we're sort of in the liminal. We're in between. We're on the edge. It's a beautiful place to be. You get a lot of downloads. And then I take that and I've actually got a custom GPT that I've built in ChatGPT that is all around my dream journaling. And it it sort of walks with me, it dances with me, it whispers with me, and it just helps me place it somewhere that I can get more insight out of what appears to be wanting to come through me. I don't always have to do anything with it, but I'm placing it in a way that the weaving is done more um, de- dependably and more relatably that allows me to go into my day or my week or my month feeling more connected with who I am, with my soul, connected with my soul. And that's an example I never would have imagined to sort of have it be a co-creator, a co-listener to my
Mhm.
dream journaling personally.
Wow.
So it's become a bit of
Yeah.
a co-regulator, it might be the word, an emotional co-regulator. And this is also where people are starting to use it differently. Cautionary tale, you've read a number of articles about this, where people start to use it a bit like a best friend or a therapist. And
Mhm.
I'm not going that far. I'm sort of drawing my boundaries with how I'm using it because
Yeah.
I have amazing friends in my life. One of them is on this Substack. Aaron is an amazing friend of mine. I also have been really beneficial to have had wonderful therapy in my life, come from a wonderful family. So I don't want to replace those people with this at all. But I'm aware that some people are very lonely in life and find that the affirmation and the power of this technology is soothing in a way. And I want people to think about that. I want people to discern why that is.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting point, and I'm thinking particularly of the younger generation who've been brought up with the technology on the phone in their hands, on the social media, and that has been their point of connection, which is scary for me in terms of the humanity and the actual heart to hearts that can be had. Um, so there's a whole education piece to be done, Bill, around this, and um, are there standards
Hmm.
for that purpose? Like, do they exist yet? Because when you're creating something new like this, the standards come afterwards, really, don't they? Only when, unfortunately, damage has already been done and they come as a result of something catastrophic.
Yeah.
So where's that at?
There are not standards at the moment, and this is the challenge. As you talked about, this is all moving so fast, and the analogy that I would give people, even if you haven't been to what we considered in the continental United States, we called it the Wild Wild West. Even if you haven't been to that part of America, you know from the movies and the films, again, going back to the power of art, film, and cinema, the Wild Wild West, right? You think of it as the people on horseback, the cowboys, they're kind of going out. They're claiming land. They're setting up. They're doing commerce, and it was kind of lawless. And what was interesting about that analogy for me was at some point, a lot of people start moving toward that area for the right reasons, for resources, for benefit, for gain, just like happened, the gold rush in the United States. And eventually, you have to put in regulations. You have to say, well, before you could just cut across that land because it was the shortest distance between 2 points. Now there's a landowner and they've got fences and we've got roads and you've got to obey the laws of the roads for these reasons because it guarantees the communal safety of everyone that's here. And I imagine early on, a lot of people who were used to the wild, wild west were like, this is annoying. I don't want regulations. I don't want to have to take the road when I can take the path. Um, there's also a lot of people that are sort of breaking brush for the first time. There are people that are pioneering this, that are going to the edge and saying, well, no one's been here before. I'm going to proceed. Um, some with caution, some with fervor. And we are now at the point where 750 million people use ChatGPT every week, I believe.
Mhm.
Um, there's a need for regulation. And
Yeah.
what sort of breaks my heart is, and I talk about this in the book, is there's at least three instances in the past year or two where the leaders that are making this technology have gone before governing bodies. And those governing bodies have said, help us get to a place where we can regulate, help us set up guidelines. And initially, those leaders seemed open to it. I don't necessarily know all the sort of backdoor conversations, boardroom conversations that are happening. We can imagine what those are, but my fear is people are choosing profit over purpose. And
Mm.
the answer, as it appears, is less regulation and
Yeah.
more pioneering and more freedom, as they call it. But at what cost?
Yeah.
And to your point, it may be too late. By the time we all wake up and say, this is too much, it will be too late, which is part of the reason I felt so called to put the book out there is if I can help someone pause for a moment, if I can help them catch their breath, if I can help them stop and say, "Wait a minute, is this the right thing for me right
Mm.
now, given these outcomes and consequences?" The answer might be yes. The answer could be no. I just want people to slow enough to be able to ask the question, sit with the question, arrive at their own answer, and then
Mm.
make an informed decision. That's how it's been for me since that first demonstration I saw in March of 2023. And I
Mm.
think it's imperative that we impart that knowledge onto every single citizen so they can make an informed decision that's right for their soul and then right for the path that they want to leave. I mean, we all want to leave a
Yeah.
legacy.
Yeah.
That's part of who we are. I don't want people to live in regret. And that's part of the
Mhm.
reason I wrote the book.
Oh, beautiful. I'm so glad. Thank you. Let's get this book out far and wide. You can get it on Amazon. I'm sorry I didn't have a link prepared in advance, but if you search Amazon for leading change in the era of AI, you'll find it. And it feels like it needs to be um, bought as a gift for anybody in your life that you love that you might be worried about, to give them an aspect, to give them an invitation back to their humanity and to learn to live in right relationship with the technology. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I've called it essentially a collection of love letters to humanity is essentially the subtext of what this book
Right.
is. And I really appreciate how you said that it's it's almost written to be a gift, to be gifted to someone because they're a series of love letters. And imagine sitting where you sit in the world and having the opportunity to write a love letter to humanity. And it's a
Mm.
little bit like putting a message in a bottle, and
Wow.
just hoping it finds its way to who it needs to. And you and I have understood the power of this with poetry, with meditation, with mindfulness, with intention. this was taking that exact purpose and making it bound and making it something that people could hold on to. Because I do think about legacy. I do think about wanting to leave the world better than I found it. I think about that
Mm.
every day. Um, and and that's why I put words to pages, and that's why I create, and that's why I share. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad that we had the time to jump on this Substack Live today, to be able to share in a different form. Like, we all don't have time to sit down and read a book even anymore. And maybe that's one of the things that we will free ourselves up for, is to sit
Right.
down and read a book. um, and, often it's the video, it's the on the go podcast. Like, I am mea culpa. Absolutely don't have time to read books because I am busy, but I'm doing what I'm doing. And I listen to my audiobooks in the car as I'm driving a lot of the places I go to. So I'm also grateful for that. Um, but the invitation to stop and to slow down and to pause is really important. And I love how we can invite the conversations around creating the empty spaces so that we can allow the creativity to bubble up more. I share very briefly. I had an experience, my own personal experience with ChatGPT about two or 3 weeks ago, where I was invited to submit a tender for a government organization around well-being.
Mm.
And the deadline was like the next week, and I'm like, what is this? And I reached out to a friend of mine. I'm like, is this for you as well? Are you part of this? And she's like, yeah, that's exactly what I do in terms of systems redesign and research and stuff, which was a piece I was missing. And she had been already working with her own AI for 3 years. So well versed in it and well immersed. She's just like, let's sit down. And it just happened to be visiting her at the time. She, let's sit down and put it in and put all the elements in and see what comes back. And within 2 hours, we had the response done. Of
Yeah.
course, there's tweaking, and we have to bring the human elements and the bits that aren't available to plot into the ChatGPT or the Gemini it was.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we did quite a lot of tweaking, but the bones of the work would have taken at least a whole week to
Yeah.
put together, where we had it done in 2 hours. And then the next week we actually won the tender. It was like, yes, thank
Brava.
you, AI.
Yeah. Right.
So that's an example for me personally of, the day that the tender was due at 5 o'clock, I actually had time to get my hair done, get my
Yeah.
nails done, and finish and submit it an hour early and then go for a swim. And the freedom in that it just brought so much ease into my system. There's like a kind of a, a sense of contentment in my body
Hmm.
because this time has been freed up. There's not this constant kind of always on edge busyness of, I have to do this, I have to do that. Into like, no, you can actually embrace this sitting back a little bit more. And that's been a real challenge because um, it's so ingrained in our systems to be constantly doing things. And particularly like, so I've been self-employed for, I can't remember. So a long time, 20 something,
Hmm.
like a long time. Um, and it's taken me a long time to deconstruct those threads of, the deeply ingrained. I think it's not just from me, but from my lineage as well, of that constant busyness, of constant having to do. So it takes a long time for us to adapt, I think, to really allowing that ease and that flow in. And I think these are conversations that need to be had as well in the tech space, in the corporate space.
Yeah.
Um, I think it goes hand in hand with what we're saying. Um, Thanks, Wanda, for joining. Lovely to see you. Wanda's in the States as well, and has lovely curiosity around all this as well. And I think, this conversation is really so timely. So let me stop waffling and come back to the regulation. And you probably have to
Yeah.
go.
No, I'm actually okay. I'm
Oh,
good on time.
okay,
And
cool.
but I did want to say to you about the self-care. I think the point you made around, getting the tender in, winning the tender, and then, you had 5 hours to get your hair done, get your nails done, go for a swim. I really, really want people to sort of listen to that example because I believe, to your point, if we use this technology in the right way, with the right intention, but keeping ourselves at the center, keeping our eye on the compass, we can actually increase and improve our self-care, right? Your example
Mhm.
was just that. You wouldn't have taken the time to take care of yourself, to treat yourself, but for the fact that you were able to accomplish a lot in a shorter period of time to the same quality level that it would have taken about a week to do. And where I think it's really important is you emerge on the other side of that healthier, more aligned, more attuned, more curious, and wanting to sort of co-regulate with this technology. At no point did you turn over all of the um, authoring or the output to the technology, but you allowed it to help you organize. You allowed it to help you streamline. Um, you allow it to give you time to have more deep conversations with your colleague or your peer to make sure that you presented in the best way for what you wanted to achieve and accomplish. And to me, that's where this can be a companion, right? It's sort of a murky mirror, right? It's a mirror that maybe is a little foggy at times, but it can be that mirror. The piece that I caution people is to not think that is fully representative of who you are, and to not give over that power to it because it is heartless. It is soulless. It is heartless. It is essentially a set of servers that are connected around the world that can process information very quickly. But not too dissimilar than what happened with social media, we can get addicted to that. It's a dopamine hit if we're not very careful. I don't want people to disguise a dopamine hit with self care and soul care. And that's why I loved your example because you were able to stand in your divine purpose and also use this technology to allow you to get closer to the work that you know you want to do in this world. And on the other side of that, you took care of yourself, which makes you a better human, makes you a better corporate partner, makes you a better creator. And I think if we do not give ourselves permission to try that, then this will drive us, not the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, that's the danger, and I think that's probably at both times, at both ends, the danger and the opportunity.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And
It's
I
that
think
fine line.
I think about also the importance of constantly revisiting that question, right? This is not a linear approach to this technology. It's meandering, it's changing all the time. There's promises made and there's hearts broken. And I want people to give themselves permission to discern. Really, that's what this comes down to is like if it doesn't feel right to you, investigate why. There's a reason why. There's more truth inside you than there is in all of the technology. Um,
Absolutely.
and we have to remember that it's as you and I have talked about, it's a bit rebellious. Um, but I think we have to be in a healthy way, a little bit rebellious while using this technology alongside.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And welcome, Charles. Thanks for joining the conversation. Thanks for being here. And thanks, Ali, for your comments. Yes. So I think this is the opportunity, Ali, as you say, don't trust what capitalism will do with this. And as Bill referred to earlier on, very rightly, that, in terms of the regulation, that governments are looking for regulation, and the leaders of the technology aren't quite forthcoming with that regulation because of exactly that, Ali. The profit over people. And I think that's our opportunity to be able to seed, as you did, the initial question that led you to write this book. This isn't what we want. So let's drive this conversation more and more. Let's be the captains of this ship collectively, from the heart, and decide that that's not, we're not going to go down that road. I truly believe, even in the last week, in the last couple of weeks, that there's been a seismic shift in consciousness. I'm feeling it in my own body, in my own reality around, there's been something that's shifted, and I can't quite put my name on it. Around I can't really, I can't put a name on it yet, but it's something around more freedom, more heart, more connection, more humanity. And if I'm feeling it and I'm having conversations with other people who are also feeling it, then it says to me that this is a collective shift.
Yeah.
So let's focus on that. Let's not go back to the old ways of, really thinking from a place of fear. As you said, Bill, it's a foggy mirror. So let's clean that mirror. But we have to, as Michael Jackson says, look at the man in the mirror, look at the woman in the mirror. What is it that's perhaps driving the fear? And let's clear that up. Let's
Yeah.
clear that up and be the clear channels then to be able to go, okay, let's embrace this. As Wanda says, it has to remain a tool, not an equal partner. We are the ones who have created the technology, that we have invited it in, to our lives. So, yeah, we're at a really pivotal point. It's such an interesting time, isn't it, Bill? Oh my God.
And it's also really interesting. I appreciate in the comments from Wanda and Ali and others. One of the things I did again in a rebellious nature is sort of towards the end of the book, I inserted 10 blank pages on purpose. And it's going to throw people because there's a point where I'm sort of guiding people through some next steps. And I essentially say, pages end, but your story as a conscious leader in this era of AI is just beginning. You're writing the next chapter of human history. You're helping determine whether artificial intelligence becomes humanity's greatest tool for flourishing or its most sophisticated threat to our own essence. The pen is in your hand. The next several pages are blank on purpose. What will you write? Start here, start now, just start. And I literally give 10 pages of blank. And I encourage people to, from that moment, just start writing inside this book, because that's how we attune to what is right for us. That is how we hold on to the humanity, and we don't suffer in the sophisticated threat that is possible with this. It's it's why we must have conversations like this. It's why we must expect more. It's why we can't wait for those that are literally driving the ship to steer us away from the rocks in some cases.
Mhm.
The analogy I think I use in one of the chapters is it's a ship's log, right? There's, as you said, the captain of a ship, and in ship's logs, they would have provided guidance. And what do we do with that ship's log, right? If that ship ended up in a shipwreck, but the log was saved and passed on to others, it's our obligation to do something with that knowledge and that wisdom and prevent other shipwrecks for other people, to build a lighthouse, to be the person that goes to the top of the lighthouse and lights that light to prevent other people from being caught in storms and
Mhm,
crashed on the rocks. And that
mhm.
all feels very important to me.
Yeah, big time. And I don't want us to get to the point where there is a shipwreck to have to
Yeah,
look at that
absolutely.
log.
Right.
Let's start now and be proactive rather than reactive. And yeah, as Ali says, co-create the story, which is the beautiful invitation. Um,
Yeah.
I think
And think
that's a
about it
gorgeous.
this way, 750 million people are going in every week and putting their thoughts into this technology.
Yeah,
This technology would not exist without 750 million thoughts a week entered
yeah,
into it. That is our story.
yeah.
We hold the power to co-create this story. If we stopped, the pipes would have no water in it. um,
And that's such a beautiful invitation. Like every single one matters.
yes,
So the more we engage in a conscious way, the better it will become.
yes,
What do
exactly.
you
We will
feel?
shape it.
Yeah. What do you feel the percentage? I mean, it's impossible to tell, but what do you feel the percentage of conscious creation in AI is
Oof.
of the 750 million people?
You know, I would probably I'm gonna guess about 8 to 10% are doing
Hmm.
it this way, and whether it's
Right.
dream journaling or co-creating or finding reasons like you said, "Look, I'm purposely going after, um, work that is going to benefit humanity, that is going to increase creativity, that is going to, scale our empathy." I think it's about 8 to 10% of people out there are using it in that fashion. Um, and
Wow.
my intention is to illuminate those people. People are using it to help heal. People are using it to help them write their memoirs. People are using it to connect with, customers or partners or entrepreneurs in ways that couldn't be possible. I love those stories. And I hope more of those guide us to the right lighthouse, to the right shore.
Mhm.
Um, I believe that everyone has a story that deserves to be echoed. You're doing so much of that work for so many people. I think if we can get to that place where we compassionately and deeply listen and we tune into the empathy, and this technology could help us do that if done with conscious purpose, then I think we could change the course of history.
Wow.
But on the flip side of that, could be very, very drastic and detrimental as well.
And there are a million and one possibilities. So let's focus on the one that we want to create.
Yeah.
And
Put our energy
together,
there.
yeah, like 8 to 10% is quite a high percentage. Um, Together,
That's what my, intuition is telling me, and I'm
mhm,
hoping
that's right.
they're a silent 8 to 10%, and I'm hoping that when things get tough, I hope they shine their light brighter. I really do.
Mhm. And I feel that's the opportunity as well because we've been so siloed, that coming together and joining the dots between us will make us stronger, will allow it to flourish and bloom and blossom even more and even further and faster in the coming together.
Yeah.
So yeah, wow. It's been so nourishing again to have this gorgeous conversation with you, Bill. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
again, congratulations and thank you so much for creating this beautiful book. That's so necessary. Thank you. Leading Change in the Era of AI. And go to Amazon.com and just put it in the search Leading Change in the Era of AI. Please absolutely do yourselves and those you love a favor, especially the younger generation. Absolutely, buy it. Get it into your hands. Get it into their hands, um, and be the change we want to see in the world.
Yes.
Let's do this. Yeah, I'm excited and inspired again. Thank you so much, Bill. It's been a great pleasure. It's been fun. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for
Um,
being my first Substack Live, and thanks for everyone for joining, and
yeah,
watching and supporting, near and far.
Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, it's been great. Let's do this again.
Yeah, look
Thanks for
forward to it.
joining us. Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great
Cheers.
weekend. Yeah. Talk soon. Bye.